Okay, good evening, everyone, to council meeting number 17. I will call the meeting to order on the eve of National Indigenous Peoples Day. We do have regrets from Councillors McKelvey, Vic, and Rudenberg, so probably one of the skinniest quorums that we've ever had, but we'll get her done. We do have several, first of all, I'd just like to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO, DENE traditional territory. Now we're going to go to approval of the agenda, but it will be as amended. We have a late agenda item under F, Delegations, Alex Boston, Executive Director, Renewable Cities, Simon Fraser University, Morris J. Wosk Center for Dialogue. We have a couple of late agenda attachments under K6, Admin Report 77/23-2022 Annual Report. Under L1, Council Information Package, there's an information package there from Simon Fraser University Renewable Cities. It's a proposed UBCM resolution to the UBCM regarding BC affordable net zero off-site wood housing industrial development. It's brought forward for review and consideration, and it is a part of your agenda package as a late addition. And okay, I've already covered the delegations. I think that's it, Madam Clerk? Good. Okay, so if I could have a motion now to adopt the agenda as amended, moved by Councillor Goulet, seconded by Councillor Runge. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Carried. Okay, so we will get right into the meeting, and we have one item. We don't have any presentations. We're going to go right now to the delegations, and that is Alex Boston, Executive Director, Renewable Cities, Simon Fraser University. Now, is that coming in on Zoom?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Elliott.
Sorry, can we approve the minutes, and then I'm going to have to sneak out and try and contact.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, all in favor, opposed, carried. I'm sorry about that. So now we're going to get to delegations, and I've already introduced the delegation. Is that coming in over Zoom, or is it live?
No, he's supposed to be attending by Zoom, but he hasn't dialed in yet, so maybe we can just proceed with the agenda, and I will sneak out and give him a shout.
I think we found him out there in cyberspace. Is that you, Alex?
This is your worship. Pleased to meet you.
Thank you. The floor is yours. You've already been introduced.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm joining rather abruptly then. That is fantastic. Thank you, your worship and councillors. It's a real pleasure to be able to join you this evening. I just want to confirm that you received, forwarded by Councillor Rudenberg, a resolution and a background brief. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen right now. If I can, and if I could confirm that are you receiving the, oh, here we go.
I'm only receiving you, but I'm not seeing your shared screen.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. Yeah, okay. Oh my God.
This is the interlude where we ask, don't we appreciate our technology?
Yeah, it's funny. I used this last week and there wasn't an issue. Let me try one more thing. Oh my gosh. Apologies for this.
So I'm wondering, can we proceed without the?
I think we're going to have to.
I'm okay with that. I guess the other option is to stand down and come back, but I'm okay with you carrying through without the benefit of the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's that's a funny issue. Okay, let's proceed without it then. It's a shame it was such a stellar presentation, but I think what I've reasonably well delineated it in the brief that I prepared for you, and the intention has been to work with some leading municipalities in BC with a diversity of interests around this opportunity around offsite wood housing industrial development. And the really key element here that drives this opportunity is oddly enough, is labor construction workforce shortfalls. So in the last 5 years, our population has grown 8%. Our construction labor force has shrunk by 3%. And you experience that really acutely there in the city of Quesnel, with a real challenge when it comes to new construction starts. And we are only just starting to realize the gravity of this labor force construction constraint. Over the next 10 years, we have an estimated 38,000 retirees in the construction labor force, and we're only going to attract, hopefully, 20,000 at most. That leaves us with a 20,000 person shortfall. So the affordability and supply constraints that we experience today are nothing like what we are going to experience over the next 3, 4, half decade, and beyond. And this is something, these labor force constraints are also what we're contending with in the education sector, in the healthcare sector, and we need to figure out ways in which we can add octane to productivity all over the place. The great dynamic that exists in the construction sector, notably for forest-dependent communities, is the ability to achieve these dramatic improvements in labor productivity by shifting to off-site building construction. So this is moving housing construction, building construction onto assembly lines where we can have a 50% labor productivity improvement. We can improve construction timelines in the order of 50% and save hard costs in construction in the order of 20%. Now, these big dramatic improvements are in part influenced by really good policy locally, provincially, and federally, but they're sort of the maximums that we can achieve, but we know they're realistic because they're being achieved in other leading jurisdictions, in Scandinavia, in Germanic countries, in Japan. This is the direction the world is going. Fortunately, in BC, we're already leaders in this space, but it's still small. About 5% of our construction starts are offsite, built on offsite, most of them in the single family space. You go to a jurisdiction like Sweden, literally 80% of single family are built offsite and 10% of multifamily and rapidly growing. A decade ago, it was about 0%, but they've achieved 10%. And part of that is because of their historic strength in forest products innovation. And this is something that we have here in British Columbia. So what we need to really do in BC is move from innovation to market transformation. And this requires a real stepped up effort by the BC government in driving off-site building construction. The biggest opportunity to do that, because of the array of different building or off-site construction barriers we have, is taking advantage of underutilized publicly owned land parcels. And I've done an analysis, and we have over 4,000 public land parcels in urban areas in British Columbia. These are transit exchanges. They are, ferry terminals, in the visitor parking areas in ferry terminals. They're K-12 school sites. They're post-secondary sites. They're municipal facilities. They're hospital parking lots. We have a whole bunch of them. Now, most of them aren't good, but about 15% of them are. They're close to jobs, close to services, and many of them have good transit support. So if we take just 10 to 15% of them, that's in the order of 600. If you built on average 80 units of affordable housing on top of them, that's in the order of 50,000 affordable housing units. So what we can do is we can address these twin urgent agendas in British Columbia around moving to off-site construction and delivering affordable housing on land we already own today. Now, when I say 80, that sounds like a lot, and it would be, but it might be 20 units in a municipality like the city of Quesnel. It could be a 3-story or a 4-story development on a municipal-owned parking lot, or in that big, large parcel not far from City Hall. In larger urban areas, it might be 100 units or 120 units. So I conservatively say about 180 units average. And there are jurisdictions already doing this, small towns of 8,000 building 3 units of affordable housing on top of the first transit exchange ever developed in Montpelier, Vermont, as an example. And then you can go to the other extreme in San Francisco, where they're building 500 units in 10 stories across an entire city block on top of a new bus depot. The other element that we can do as municipalities to drive demand is build on some of the innovation that you're already doing in the city of Quesnel. You've already pre-approved designs for coach houses. You call them accessory dwelling units. Well, we can do that. We can do coach houses. We can do triplexes. The city of Kelowna has pre-approved quadplexes on RS zones. We can do that for 4-story construction multifamily. If we pre-zone and pre-approve voluntarily for local governments that are interested, these designs, we can work with off-site building manufacturers and rapidly scale and dramatically bring down the costs. 20%, 30%, or more reductions in the hard costs. And then we can use zoning tools to also reduce the cost as well. So what I'm proposing, and we've been working with off-site building manufacturers across British Columbia, real estate developers and municipalities, is an industrial policy framework in British Columbia with a strong early sorry about that. That's my executive assistant here that gets really excited about that. My apologies. There's a big opportunity for advancing this affordable off-site wood construction industrial policy in British Columbia, with local governments really at the center, working collaboratively with the provincial government, rather than having things foisted upon local governments or foisted upon other sectors as well. There's so much keen interest where we can voluntarily move forward where there's interest. We need an innovative financial model. The provincial government needs to stack funding from CMHC, from BC Housing, from the Infrastructure Bank of Canada. We need project facilitators for the provincial government. And as I said, we need this early adopter program. I apologize, I wasn't able to share that presentation. I'll address that. The next one I do, I'm presenting to the City of Vancouver next week, and also the City of Courtenay. You're three very distinct municipalities that are all leading in various spaces. You're very, very different in sort of your growth rates. But one thing you share is a homelessness issue, an affordable housing supply, an affordable housing construction issue. Thank you so much for your interest. And I wish I was up there at the confluence of the Quesnel and the Fraser River there. I've always enjoyed my time, and the work that successive councils have done is just so impressive when I run into your staff and run into various councillors, current and past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. And yeah, this is an exciting time for exactly what you're talking about, both from the housing end and also, I think, and more particularly for Quesnel, the construction end. And I don't think it's any secret that, you know, Quesnel has a good raw timber land base. We've got a skilled a variety of skilled people in our workforce. We have vacant industrial infrastructure. We've got excellent rail, highway, and even air capability for transportation connections. We are centrally located in the province of British Columbia. And, you know, for many years, Quesnel bragged about the fact that we had the highest concentration of wood and wood products manufacturing on a per capita basis in all of North America. And in spite of the fact that, yes, we have lost some of that, but equally, other communities have lost the same or even more. So I think that we can probably still brag about the fact that we have the per capita basis, the largest concentration of wood and wood products manufacturing in all of the province of British Columbia. And I mean, we've got a plywood plant, an MDF plant. We have 2 pulp mills. We have an assortment of variety specialty manufacturing, sort of mom and pop operations. So I think that the climate, the economic climate is absolutely perfect for this type of an initiative, and look forward to hearing more from you. Is there any comment? Councillor Runge.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks for the presentation. I have a question, you know, or maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a suggestion. I'm not sure. I love the idea. I love a lot of things that are being brought forward with regards to the houses. And yes, you're right. We do have our carriage house already designed. In your discussions with your communities, I guess Kelowna comes to mind and the other ones, would those communities be willing to share, I guess, with our, you know, planning department, those designs, you know, if they were actually able to be built here with our snow load and our temperatures and things like that. But the idea of sharing those designs so that not every community, especially small communities, has to fund the cost of coming up with a design. You know, if there was some way to somehow share those types of things, you know, I agree. We've been looking for years at utilizing our underutilized land for some of these options, and really what we're looking for is, hey, someone wants to just build it. So I think it's a great idea.
Councillor Runge, you're right, and you will note that in the resolution, that's one of the requests for UBCM to advance in collaboration with the provincial government is this early adopter program where they actually facilitate shared action by different municipalities. And that's precisely the type of action that would be appropriate, is looking at similar municipalities with unique needs to share pre-approved designs. So Nelson is another community, for example, that is pre-approved coach houses. Can we actually get, 7 or 8 or 9 small to medium-sized municipalities to adopt a similar design, pool their resources, potentially get provincial government support to help run these design competitions, and then work with offsite building manufacturers. So it could be Sinclair Winton just up the road in PG, or this new developer in Caribou, or potentially a developer in Quesnel, to actually start putting these on the assembly lines. But that's exactly what I think we need in order to cost effectively move forward with these opportunities, because one of the challenges is we just don't simply have the scale to make it cost effective at this point. So we need to pool our resources.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got a comment here? We're certainly not going to lose this one. This one's too good to let get away, and we will be having more discussion on this one. So can we now, Madam Clerk, I know that there's a resolution in front of us. Is it proper to bring that resolution forward and vote on it because it is on the same subject matter?
Yeah, you could move SIP forward if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that we could do that. And this is the second item, or it's, I don't know which number it is on the council information. It's item number 1. So we do have the resolution in front of us. Are we ready to move that resolution, which is a resolution to the UBCM? I guess it would be from the City of Quesnel, obviously. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Sorry, Alex, sorry. With regards to, when I got this, I love the idea. I just don't know what this off-site wood construction industrial policy framework actually encompasses. I don't want it to have unintended consequences on small builders that might be building homes. I want it to be an add-on with it. And if that's the intention, I'm 100% behind it. But I do, there are a lot of construction companies that are going to the net zero. They're moving along, and we want to support them. And maybe this is just another tool. I'm just not 100% sure with that. And that was my question with regards to, the policy, because we're talking about the policy framework, but we don't actually see the policy framework or even the ideas of it here. Oh, that's everything.
Is that a question to myself? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry. No, this is such an important point as well, Councillor Runge. And the reality is the state of our construction labor force. We are going to be incrementally advancing this opportunity. There will never be a home builder that will be displaced. The demand is just simply too high. But I also really think the policy framework hasn't been developed yet. And one thing that I emphasize in that initial resolution ask is that this is collaboratively developed. We need to involve home builders, we need to involve developers, manufacturers, and local governments, key professions like engineers and building officials who have been really key in this space. We need to collaboratively advance this, and this involves some compromise, and it's something that, and some shared problem solving. We all have little pieces of we understand little pieces of the problem. Nobody understands all of it, me included, and nobody understands all of the solutions. That's why that collaborative element is so central in that first request. But this is something that needs to be developed together, and I think organized labor needs to be involved as well to ensure that there isn't displacement and we're facilitating a just transition. But I'm confident that given the supply, the current constraints on supply and the current demand, is that we can move this forward in a very orderly fashion and no one's going to be displaced. It'll be a real challenge to meet our housing supply targets that are set by most local governments, provincial governments, and the federal government for that matter. It can't be done by building traditionally on site.
Okay, thank you. Before I get to the actual resolution, your PowerPoint presentation, that's not what was attached to our agenda package. I'm just wondering, could you submit the PowerPoint resolution to our staff, and then we could get it bounced out to council electronically? Would that work?
I can do that, Your Worship. The presentation that I just gave largely reflects the brief that I believe Councillor Rudenberg forwarded last week, along with the resolution. But I will make sure that I PDF that presentation I had prepared for you and forward that to the clerk there.
Yeah, we've got 3 pages that I believe came from Councillor Rudenberg, 3 or 4 pages that's attached to the resolution. So we'll leave it with you that if you have additional information, please submit it and make sure, staff will make sure that it gets forwarded on to council. So on the resolution, are we prepared to vote on the resolution, or do you want to maybe wait for a bit on it?
Well, I think we could go either way, but I'm wondering if maybe we should let the rest of council be a part of this and be able to take a look at all the information and the PDF when it comes forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's, Alex, I don't think there's a huge hurry on this. I mean, but I do know that we don't have another council meeting until mid-July.
Well, when do the resolutions
You
have
have
to be into UBCM?
June 30th.
Okay, well, that says that there's a little bit of a push there. So Councillor Runge.
Yeah, I think that we should vote on it, even though I agree with Councillor Elliott. It would have been nice to have more of our council members here today. We're pretty limited in our membership today, Alex. So yeah, I'm okay to vote on it. I actually feel that most of our council would most likely. I don't see any big differences. I don't mind, the point is I don't think we're going to have enough time to bring it. If we have enough time before our next meeting and we can still get it into the UBCM, then I'm okay with that. Otherwise, let's move it on.
No, I think that we should move it. I wasn't really paying attention to the UBCM deadline for resolutions, but June 30th is.
Well, as it turns out, we don't have another meeting before June 30th, so I do agree. Yeah, I'll move the resolution.
So, Councillor Elliott is moving, and Councillor Runge, it sounds like you seconded that. So is there any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Well, thank you, Alex, and we do look forward to hearing from you and perhaps working with you further. I do hope that there's going to be a session at UBCM on this because it is very, very timely. Thank you.
We deeply appreciate your support and your interest, and it is pivotal to get a municipality like the City of Quesnel with its forest products sector and from Northern BC supporting this. And I will be in contact with you and your staff about such a session. It is currently under development with a couple of partners, including Forestry Innovation Investment, that has supported the City of Quesnel in the past.
Well, thank you. And actually, it's a little bit of a personal thing here for me and my family. We have a new house, not for myself, but in the family, and it's in a remote location, and we're pretty well looking at going to having that house constructed off-site and brought in because it's really hard to get contractors these days. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so moving along, Now, we're going to go to items arising from previous special closed meeting. There was a special closed meeting on May 2 of 2023, and this was approved for release on June 6. And it was duly moved and seconded at that meeting that council does not condone moving the gold pan from the CN rail train station on Highway 97 across from the museum for the duration of this council term. And so that was carried. I don't think we need to have any discussion on that. That's just for public information. We have no unfinished business. We have no committee reports, council reports, council reports. And I'm going to go to page 9 because I see that I am up to go to the regional district meeting of June 2. As soon as I get my pages unstuck together here. Yes, there was and I was in attendance at the Caribou Regional District Board meeting on June 2 from the Caribou Regional Hospital District, and this is a good one. The City of Quesnel updates the board on healthcare recruitment and retention activities. Beverly Barr presented an update to the board on the City of Quesnel's healthcare recruitment and retention initiative. The program began in 2015 as a means of addressing a shortage of physicians, nurses, and other healthcare professionals, and has since become a well-recognized model for similar services to complement the recruitment efforts in health authorities. A similar initiative was later introduced to the Central and South Caribou regions based on the success of the joint initiative by the City of Quesnel. And the reason that I read that in its entirety, because it's a real good pat on the back for the City of Quesnel and for our program. And the fact that others are duplicating that is testament to the success of that program. Still on the matter of health care, the Regional District amplified the call for Williams Lake Urgent and Primary Care Center. They are in dire need of such a center, and we are lucky to have one here in Quesnel. Also, we had at the Caribou Regional Hospital District Board meeting, we had a session from Interior Health on demystifying the sewage regulation scope of authority. So when you're on the city, or when you're on the Regional District Board of Directors, you learn a lot, and here we were learning about the virtues of sewage treatment in rural areas and the trials and tribulations. Aren't we thankful that we live on a community sewer system? The Bushy Lake Millburn neighborhood plan received second reading, and that will advance to the public hearing phase. And this marks a critical step in embedding the desires and visions expressed by residents of the Bushy Millburn area for a more localized approach to planning their community. So we'll keep our eyes on that one. And later, or in fact, coming up very soon on the agenda is a discussion that duplicates a discussion that was held at the CRD board meeting on June 2, and that was to talk about possible meetings with ministers at the UBCM. The board held initial discussions to identify which ministers they will meet with, what concerns will be raised, and how to ensure that the needs of the Caribou are heard by the province. Core themes focused on local governments and the regional district being left out of critical conversations impacting local governments and the communities they serve. The board has tasked regional district staff with conducting background research on these topics to assist in preparations for potential meetings with various provincial ministers and staff. So we'll be moving down that road here even later tonight. The next regional district meeting is what they call Board on the Road, and that's coming up later this week, June 22 and June 22 or 23. June 22 is the Committee of the Whole, and June 23 all day is the regular Caribou Regional District and the Caribou-Chilcotin Regional Hospital District meeting, and those Board on the Road meetings will be held in Macleese Lake. So that concludes my report on the UBCM. And now we move to J2, and this is UBCM meeting request. And I think traditionally, or in the past, the mayor has come up with a list of proposed requests for meetings with ministers at the UBCM, but I would like to sort of open that up to council to have that discussion. You can see that on page 11 of 100 are the sample from the 2022 UBCM meeting requests, and really just to sort of get the conversation going with Northern Health, which is at the top of the page, really a whole lot has not changed. We have, for instance, a status of capital projects in Quesnel. Now I know that they've completed the new ER and the new ICU at GR Baker, but there are other projects that are sitting in the wings, and certainly we would like to meet with not only Northern Health but also with the Minister of Health when we're down there to get an update on where those projects are. And obviously, and this is something that's not unique to Quesnel, it's on the agenda for all municipalities and not so much regional districts, but to an extent, and that is mental health and addictions services, and also healthcare worker recruitment and retention. And one that I've got added in there is housing. And I know that when we had the what I call the Ramada Rumble, and that was where there was a proposal to convert the Ramada motel into supportive housing, and we all know how that turned out. But at that point, I said that that the Ministry of Health / Northern Health and BC Housing should work more collaboratively and deliberately on low-cost, assisted and supporting housing initiatives, so that it, to bring the two of them together, and of course that they would be working with in collaboration with local governments such as the city and any other local agencies in the community. So in other words, what I'm advocating for is doing more effective pre-planning rather than dumping a proposal onto the community and onto the people with a limited time frame in order to get an approval. So that is my recommendation for Northern Health, and I'm not going to go through the list. I do have on the list several other items checked, but does any member of council have anything to add to that list? Or go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to ask when these requests have to be finalized and put in for them to be able to schedule meetings with the ministers. Do we know that?
I think it's coming up fairly soon. I've seen it, but I don't remember what the date is. But I know that the date for requests for ministerial meetings is earlier. The deadline is earlier than it is for staff, like for ministerial staff. There's sort of two levels. And I think that, we'd really like to talk to the minister if we can.
Yeah, of course. So I would just suggest that we put this out to all of council and get, I mean, we could dig into it now, but if we don't know what, the timing of it and when it needs to be done, I think we should be hearing from all of council and not rehashing it.
Okay, but I would submit that since we don't have another meeting until middle of July, I would think that we need to get something in prior to that, and I certainly wouldn't object to putting something out to council in an email format saying, hey, do you have any ideas? But give council a deadline, because staff has to, once we come up with a list of requests, staff has to come up with a bit of a cheat sheet on each individual subject so that we don't go in, unprepared. So does that work for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that could work if we'll send it out by email and get responses, put a time limit on that. Of course, it doesn't take a council resolution to book these meetings, so that should actually work just fine. And we'll send that out tomorrow, as well as with the dates attached of what we need done by. Thank you.
Okay, and if I could just, what I'd like to do is just maybe, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go through the list and maybe highlight anything that's on that list, but certainly under Minister of Health, and I did mention this about, housing, the Ministry of Housing and Health working together on collaboratively planning with local government on low-cost assisted and supportive housing initiatives. We would want to talk to the Minister of Health about the status of capital projects in Quesnel. Going down the list to the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, I think it's important that we have an exchange and an update on reconciliation projects in Quesnel. We would like to know where the government is. We're sort of in a dark space as far as UNDRIP and DRIPA is concerned, and also update government on our LHTAKO Quesnel BC Winter Games. And Minister of Transport, and this is a big one, probably the biggest one, and that is to talk to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure about the interconnector project and the Moffat Bridge. And also with the Minister of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation. And this goes back to the presentation that we had from Alex here a few minutes ago, and that is innovation projects, update on Quesnel innovation projects, forestry, agriculture, First Nations, etc. And this would certainly be focused on the forestry and the wood manufacturing picture. And that would be probably it from my perspective. But certainly we can use that list as a sort of an anchor and a guide for the rest of council. And if we could have staff, I think maybe if we said, okay, 1 week, would that be a sufficient time window to give the council to respond so that we can get, I don't know what the deadline is for requests for ministerial meetings, but I know that it's coming up relatively soon. Okay, thank you for that. Next item on our agenda is K1 Admin Report, BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement. Director Norburn to report, please.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to obtain council approval to enter into the 2023-2024 annual operating agreement with BC Transit for the provision of conventional and custom service. The city has a transit service agreement with BC Transit that provides the basis for transit services in Quesnel. Each year, the city and BC Transit enter into an AOA that confirms the annual budget, service levels, and cost structure for the transit system. BC Transit is now billing local government partners based on actual expenditures instead of based on the budget. The city has $63,633 in a local transit fund held by BC Transit, which is a combination of the remaining safe restart funding and any overages from when BC Transit was billing based on budget prior to the change to billing based on actual expenditures. This funding can be applied to the city's share of transit costs at any time at the request of the city. Under the terms of the Safe Restart Funding Contribution Agreement, BC Transit and its local government partners are required to maintain targeted essential transit service levels and fees through to the end of the 2023-2024 fiscal year. So, in other words, we can't increase the fees. We agreed to that when we accepted the Safe Restart funding until at least the end of this fiscal year, which would be to the end of March 2024. The recommendation is that council approves entering into the 2023-2024 annual operating agreement for Quesnel Transit Service with BC Transit, and that the mayor and corporate administrator be authorized to execute such documents as required to complete the agreements.
Okay, thank you. Got a motion on the floor to accept the resolution. Councillor Goulet moves it. Councillor Runge seconds it. Before we go for the vote, I've got a couple of questions, and then I'll go to council. A question to staff. Do the taxation increases for transit keep pace with the fare increases or vice versa?
We haven't increased the fees in, I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but I'd guess at least 8 or more years. Yeah, so we haven't been increasing the fees, and in fact, through COVID in particular, the funding, we got government funding, the Safe Restart funds that supported communities to maintain transit service through the COVID pandemic, we had to agree not to increase fares for users. That BC Transit's goal, the province's goal, was to maintain affordable transit services. And so the first opportunity, if council were to entertain increasing fares, would be after this fiscal year.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand that. Is there anything that is available that shows a comparison of transit fares in other communities? Like, where does Quesnel rank in terms of transit fares? Like, I was in Vancouver a while back, and I think I had to pay $15 to get from the airport downtown on SkyTrain. And then I ventured out on public transit, and it was $3.75 here and $2.25 there. And maybe I don't know. Maybe I was going into other zones, and I didn't know if I was, paying them. I don't think I was paying the minimum, but it made me sort of think about, where we are at here. So I guess what I'm looking at is I kind of feel for the taxpayer that the taxpayer is getting hit with the increases, but the actual users are not. And I understand the rationale. But it would be good to sort of know where we stand in the global picture as to how we or what we charge for fares.
Yep, fair enough. And we've had BC Transit provide those comparisons before. Generally, as a rule, BC Transit tries to provide the service at an affordable level, since many of the people who use transit services are lower income individuals or marginalized populations. But that's information that we can certainly get from BC Transit.
Okay, so then go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Thank you, and I think your points will be most likely visited next year when we look at the fares. I have 2 questions, I think, maybe 3, I don't know. So with BC Transit now billing the local government, do you see a change in our city's costs then? Like, is there any early indicator? Are we going to be paying more as a city taxpayer or less? Or
I think the assumption, and BC Transit didn't want to do this on a one-off basis with different municipalities, each doing it a different way. So they basically went to the local government partners, asked for feedback. The local government partners, as a majority of them anyway, said that they would prefer to pay the actual costs rather than the model before, where, if we paid per budget, usually there was a surplus, and then that would carry forward, and BC Transit would transfer that into the budget for the next year. So now we're being charged the actual amount. As sort of noted there, we have a surplus that is being held by BC Transit that is our money and will always be there, and we can always apply it to transit services as we need it. Our approach to date has been to hold that money there, and then if we have a year where transit costs more than we expected, or there's some unexpected costs, we have that buffer built in that won't impact local taxpayers. It's money that's already set aside in a reserve, an operating reserve for the city to use. So we have that buffer. It's a little bit hard to tell because, of course, the last few years have been COVID years, and there's been a combination of decreased use of transit during the pandemic years, but then also an influx of funding that came from the province through BC Transit to support communities, and and there was some of that $63,000 surplus is excess COVID funds that were allocated for Quesnel that were not required in order to maintain the budget. So, so far we're doing fine with this model.
All right, so that actually segues perfectly into my second question, because I personally would like to use this money up this year, because I'm always scared of money held elsewhere outside of our accounts that it somehow disappears with a change in government or change in government policy. But but we can approach that next year when we come to budget time. If we need it, we can look at that. Now, then my next question though goes to page 25 of 100. When we're looking at the Schedule C, the budget, the para-transit. Is that our full transit system? Is that our total revenue that we're getting there on that budget? I'm just trying to figure out how we're getting to our local share of costs. Or my understanding was that we have the local share of costs, but then do we also keep the revenue, the ticket revenue or the bus revenue, or is that put back into the budget? Clarification on that, I guess.
Yeah, so it is a little confusing because their numbers don't match our numbers precisely. And we have other factors that we include in the budget. For example, we get funding from the Caribou Regional District. That doesn't factor anywhere into the BC Transit numbers. We have expenses like for shelter repairs if they're vandalized that we put into the budget. That's not factored into this budget. So when they're calculating this, they're basing it on the costs that sort of run through them, and basically it is the net of the expenses less the revenue, and then proportioned, with the province's share and with the city's share. So those numbers will vary somewhat from what we put into the budget.
All right, so that
they give us a more detailed budget that they don't want made public, because there's, it's a competitive process for the operators who bid on the contracts to manage the local transit services. So that information is proprietary, so we don't put it on the council agenda at the request of BC Transit, but we do get more detailed breakdowns of how that all breaks out, and from that is where we come up with the numbers that we put into the city budget. The other thing is their fiscal year doesn't coincide with our annual year. So there's always going to be differences, I guess, is what I'm saying, between these numbers and what we have in the budget.
Thanks, Director Norburn. But, from a councillor's perspective, what I'm actually looking at is this number here. And I just want to know a few things about the number. Like, so if we're looking at 563,814, does that number, how does that match up to last year or to the previous years? Is that higher, lower? Like, we have no comparison here. So, and it's not going to do anything because we're going to, relative to what we're asking here, because we're just going to be passing this motion anyway. But those are the questions that I have. Like, is this the same as last year, or are we 40% more? There's no way for me to see that with the limited information that was given to us.
And we could provide some more detailed financial information. Like you say, there is that issue of not wanting to share information that could be advantageous to somebody bidding on a contract in the future in Quesnel, that type of thing. So that type of information is a little bit sensitive. I think the real, I guess, impact number for the local taxpayer is that level of taxation, what we tax local residents for to support transit services, and that number in 2023 is just about $350,000 a year, just under. And I think that's relatively comparable to previous years, but certainly when we bring the budget, I think the whole budget, the city budget, we do show, what that taxation level has been in previous years.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to echo, because I did have that comment under financial implications on page 13 of your report, Jeff, and I had the same question as to whether there's a variance number there that we could look at, just so that we could compare what it's costing the city, particularly what's being billed to the difference, the variation that is being billed to the taxpayer. But we'll leave it at that. Councillor Runge, did you have anything further?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm looking now for a resolution on the resolution that council approved this operating agreement. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, any discussion?
Sorry, you already have a mover and a seconder. We have Goulet and Runge. You just need to call a vote.
I'm sorry, what?
you already have a mover and
Oh,
seconder.
no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Usually I'm behind, so, all right, so I can call question on that then. Okay, we're going to call the question on that. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Well, it's nice to be ahead rather than behind. Okay, so that is, now we're going to go to Admin Report 7423, and that, or pardon me, yeah, 7423, 2022 Annual Drinking Report, Water Report, and we're going to go to Superintendent Law for this one.
Thank you. The purpose of the annual drinking water report for the City of Quesnel is to describe the water system and provide a summary of water management, including testing during the previous year, 2022. This report is a requirement under the Drinking Water Protection Act and Drinking Water Protection regulations. In summary, a copy of this report and the monitoring results will be made available to the public at City Hall, as well as being placed on the city's website.
Okay, thank you for that, and there's no resolution required on that because it is for information only, but I do have a question, and it goes to the bottom of page 31 of 100, where it says the City of Quesnel is working with qualified drinking water professionals to create a water treatment system designed to remove manganese from drinking water. I'm presuming that we're looking at chlorine. Does anyone have an answer there? Like, are we looking at chlorine and or any alternative methods of treating the water? Or is this, I know that this may not be under the purview of the superintendent, but it is in the, there is a reference to it in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the system that's being determined by council, and council actually took a vote on it, the preferred system is a chlorination-based. Chlorination, of course, leaves residual chlorine in the water, which disinfects the water for, you have a higher guarantee that the water does get disinfected properly. And it's also, the chlorination then causes or requires filtration then to remove the manganese, and that's pyrolusite filtration system. So council has looked at the various options around that in the past and decided that is the preferred option. Currently, our consultants working on that project, Urban Systems, are working on, I think it's a bit of more on the public information side to try to get the word out about that system. But that is the status of that. You're correct. There is some chlorination involved in that as well.
Okay, well, I guess everybody knows my position on chlorination. There are other alternatives out there, but it all comes down to the dollar bill, because certainly chlorination is the lowest bid. And I mean, there's reverse osmosis, UV. There's a membrane treatment option. And certainly, I'm hoping that there, at the end of the day, that there will be an option for chlorine removal on the private side of the shutoff, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Councillor Bunge.
Yeah, sorry, my question is more to the report. So in here, and I'm not sure if I've missed it somewhere, so my apologies if I have. So we have a report. Does it look like it's this? I'm trying to see if there were no numbers here with regards to, is anything getting worse or better, or are all our wells still roughly the same as previous years? Because it talks about all the testing, but attachment B, maybe I'm missing something. Or is that the public notice?
I think we left the sampling results out of this report, but the actual, all the sampling certificates of analysis are required to be made public. So last year we had 10 instances where we needed to resample. It talks about that in the report. 10 instances, and we resampled, and there was no subsequent
all right,
positive
so it's just for clarification, because this report gets brought out to the public, right?
Yes.
So when the public's looking, I would think as a city, a resident of the city, that I just want to know, hey, are things still okay, right? Somewhere in here. So I'm not sure if that's even in this report, or if it's just, you get where I'm getting at? I'm trying to say, like, when I'm reading this report, I have no way of knowing whether we're good or not. What I see when I go through it, I see water quality advisory under the public health notice, but yet I think we're actually quite good in most of our things. So that's just where I was coming from. So just, if it can be clarified for the public, just for the public report, it would be my hope, because right now, when I look at this, it's just, it's nebulous.
Councillor Runge, I had the same sort of perspective on that, and was thinking that really it would be good if the report could include, I don't know what you want to call it, a layman's executive summary, something that is non-technical and says, yes, we're good, or no, we're bad. I mean, I think that would be helpful. Just to explain to the public that you got to sort of dig through this to determine that we're getting a passing grade. But it would be handy to put that in as a sort of a statement that, generally I think we're looking good. I mean, other than the manganese problem, which is not unique to Quesnel. I'll leave it with you.
Okay, thank you for your input on that there.
Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, just a question to staff. Joe, if there was a problem and it was bad, as mentioned, would you bring it to our attention?
As far as sampling, if there's if we do receive a sample that comes back positive for coliforms, it's immediately reported to the health authority, and then we would go to public notification immediately on any immediate requirements for.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Council. As I said, that is for information only, so we can move along. And the next one is Admin Report 76/23, Quesnel Hydraulic Riparian Development Permit Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The subject of this report is an update on the disturbance and destruction of a designated riparian area at 3269 Quesnel Hydraulic Road. By way of background, this was presented to Council on February 21st of the incident, where Council required a remediation report to be prepared by a qualified professional with the submission of bonding prior to occupancy being provided for the home under construction. We have now received that riparian report, which is the subject of this report, as well as we have received the bonding that's going to be required for the restoration. So without going into too much detail, most of the planting, for Council's information, we won't be seeing that till later in the fall. That is best practice for landscaping planting. And the biologist will be on site overseeing that, and will be providing us with a plan and photos following the restoration. The recommendation is that Council approve DP 2356 for the remediation and restoration plan on the lot described as that part of District Lot 658, Caribou District, as shown on Plan B4014, subject to submitting a site plan and photos following completion of the remediation works, noting the number of trees planted and identification of leaf strips where no plant removal will occur in the future.
Okay, so thank you. We do have a recommendation there. So is there someone that's moved already? Okay, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, moving the recommendation. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that one. Okay, so moving on to item number 60, or page 67. This is Admin Report. Oh, pardon me, I missed it. Admin Report 7323, Quesnel and District Daycare Center Society Management Agreement Director Norburn to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to obtain council approval to enter into an agreement with the Quinellen District Daycare Society for use of the new child care center. The city is in the process of constructing a new $3.7 million child care center at 420 Webster Avenue in West Quesnel, primarily with grant funding obtained through the Child Care BC New Spaces Fund. Construction is anticipated to be completed this summer with the intention that the new center will be operational in the fall. When the grant application was submitted, it was based on the assumption that the child care center would be operated by the Quinellen District Daycare Society, which is a nonprofit organization that operates a smaller child care center currently in North Quesnel. Staff met with volunteers of the society in the spring of 2023 to develop terms for an agreement for the operation of the new facility. The proposed agreement is for a 5-year term commencing September 1st. Rent has been set at approximately $5 per square foot per year to ensure the financial sustainability of the child care center, while at the same time generating sufficient revenue to offset anticipated capital and major maintenance costs that the city may incur. Rent is fixed for the full duration of the term. Because the operation is new and operating costs for the society are not known, language has been included in the agreement to provide for a review of the rent following the first complete year of operation. Under the terms of the agreement, the society will be responsible for all operating costs related to the center, including landscape and grounds maintenance, snow removal, utility costs, and routine building maintenance and cleaning. The city will be responsible for major building maintenance and capital replacement costs and for providing water and sewer service. The Daycare Society will be responsible for obtaining childcare licensing and complying with the childcare licensing regulations. The recommendation is that council enter into the attached 5-year agreement with the Quinellen District Daycare Society for the operation and management of the childcare center located at 420 Webster Avenue in Quesnel, and that the mayor and corporate administrator be authorized to execute such documentation as required to complete the agreement.
Okay, so thank you for that. Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation? And then I've got a couple of questions. Councillor Elliott, or Councillor Goulet is moving, and Councillor Elliott is seconding. Okay. In your report, you indicate that the agreement will generate just shy of $24,000 in annual $24,000 in annual revenue for the city. So will that $24,000 cover the cost of water, sewer, property insurance, and major building and maintenance and capital improvements that the city will be responsible for?
Yeah, I mean, some of those costs, of course, are unknown. We're going into an agreement, and I think the Daycare Society had the same, apprehension about, can they afford the rent at whatever rent level we set, because they don't know what the utility costs are going to be. They don't know what the landscaping costs are going to be or the maintenance costs are going to be. I think our intent was to try to strike a fee or a rent rate that would address, our concerns, to make sure that we had sufficient funding to cover our expenses, and that would be manageable for the Daycare Society. Given that there's so many unexpected costs there. So I believe that it will, but we'll have to see as we're operational.
Okay, so in your narrative there, accompanying your report, you mentioned that utility costs would be covered by the Daycare Center Society, but sewer and water are being covered by the city. So when you say utility costs, you're referring to things like gas and hydro and telephone and all the rest of it. But the city will exempt them from charges for water and sewer.
Well, we would charge ourselves, I guess.
Well, okay.
The utilities department would bill into a daycare account that we would have for our expenses.
And one final question, is the existing society facility up on Kinchin Street, is it tax exempt already?
My understanding is they pay taxes, but that would really be a question for the Director of Finance. But I don't know if City Manager knows. My understanding, I think, is that they do pay taxes, and that it was, I'm pretty sure actually I asked for that number, and it was quite small.
So it is a small number, because where I'm going with this is that, we're going from a positive tax for the city, a revenue situation, to a no tax because the facility is owned by the city. facility. I just draw.
No, actually, I'm gonna say that I did have that conversation, and I remember having that conversation with the Daycare Society because they were quite concerned about what the taxes would be, and we actually went through the exercise of going to Assessment BC and finding out for them what their tax bill would likely be. It would be a significant increase from what they pay now because, of course, the value of the building they're in now is quite small in comparison to this building. So they definitely will be paying taxes, unless council for some reason exempts them. But their expectation is that they're going to pay taxes.
I'm going to go to City Manager now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The taxation issue is actually interesting because a number of years ago when we were looking at permissive exemptions, council noted that there was a bit of a different treatment for taxation for daycares. So at that point in time, permissive exemptions were eliminated for daycares so that it was an even level playing field for the daycares. So this new daycare will be paying tax on their facility because we don't do tax exemptions for daycares because, like I say, there's lots of operators with different tax bases of their facilities.
Well, thank you. That was part of the concern there is that, we've got a facility that, in effect, competes against private enterprise, and that was sort of where I was going with that. So we do we have a motion on the table yet? So I'm looking now for the vote. You're going to go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, just a comment. I think that we have to keep in mind, too, that we're creating a brand-new childcare facility over on the west side where it's desperately needed and it's in the demographic that's needed the most as well. But the reason that I'm moving forward with this without any question is that because of the language that's been included, that we can take a look at the rent after 1 year, a complete 1 year, and see if it's working for them, working for us, and I think that's a fail-safe way to go.
Sure. Okay. So can we go now to the question? Call the question on the motion. And no further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Okay, over the page to Admin Report 7523, Dental Clinic Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose is to review the overall site design for proposed dental clinic on Lot 2 Valhalla Road. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story dental clinic. The development will have separate access and egress points with clear entry and exit signage. Council will notice that the lot is in close proximity to the access egress off of Highway 97 South. The design for the access egress has been done with that consideration in mind. The building design will enhance the appearance of the area with a variety of sloping roof lines, facade relief, and painted metal siding. There will be an encroachment. There has been an encroachment agreement requested from the applicant to utilize additional boulevard there that was acquired by the highway back when some of the improvements were being proposed at that time. That is not going to be used at any time near future by highway. So they've given the nod, and it is a city parcel, and they're requesting usage of that area as per the site plan for some extra parking and access improvements. There are a couple of variances I'm just going to go over in this report from the zoning bylaw. There's a couple of items that I'm going to talk about that doesn't quite meet the zoning bylaw, but because of the site shape and size, staff are recommending that through this DP we vary these sections of the zoning bylaw with council's endorsement of the site plan. Okay, just to quickly go to the access and circulation aspects, the proposed plan does not meet a couple of sections regarding off-street parking, just where it's located, not amount or size or anything like that of stalls. It's just how it's located regarding corner intersection of roads. Due to the location and size of the lot, this would not be possible to create efficient vehicle circulation, and so we are recommending they be waived or varied. One-way signage is proposed for both entry and exit to and from the one-way aisles, and the signage will be located on freestanding signs. All aisles will meet their respective one-way width requirements for circulation within the development. With respect to the landscaping, the proposed plan does not meet the landscape buffer requirements as per Section 413.2, and are required to be varied again through this endorsement of the site plan. Again, staff is not worried. There is significant landscaping proposed here, as well as the solid screen of 2 meters from the back is going to be put in place. So staff is satisfied with that. The site plan and the elevation plans are attached for council's review. I'm going to go right to the recommendation. It's recommended that council approve DP 2355 for the construction of a dental office on Lot 2, District Lot 3948, Caribou District Plan 11222, Accept Plan 29374, and EPP 110177 as proposed on the attached plans, subject to the following being approved prior to building permit issuance. Final drainage and surface plans submitted acceptable to the Director of Capital Works. Landscaping bonding in the amount of 125% of all hard and soft landscaping, and an encroachment agreement to utilize the boulevard for additional parking and to display directional signage.
Thank you. I have Councillor Runge moving, Councillor Elliott seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Well done. Okay, so the next one is Admin Report 7723, City of Quesnel Annual Report. We go to City Manager Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the annual report is electronically available to council. It's up on the screen right now. I know council will have flipped through it and studied it in detail. We didn't bring paper copies of it this year. So the annual report is, of course, composed of many different sections, I think every bit of which council has seen in the past, including strategic plan, what got authorized at a previous council meeting not too far in the past. So the community charter requires council to complete the annual report by June 30th of every year. And to consider any submissions made by the public. I must say there were no submissions made by the public of this. It was advertised in the newspaper on May 31st and June 7th, and it was available for pickup by the public for inspection as of June 1st. And no comments or submissions, so the recommendation is that the Quesnel City Council approves the 2022 annual report for the City of Quesnel as attached to the June 20th, 2023 Quesnel City Council agenda. And may I say before council votes on this that while I rip through this quite quickly, our communication person, Tian, has done a really great job in making it a easy-to-read document that explains what the key issues are, that's colorful, that is, I think, interesting to read. I may be the only person who thinks it's interesting to read because I believe our readership is fairly low on it. So I would encourage anyone listening to this to go on our website and pick up a copy. You'll learn a lot about the city and what some of the things that we do. So there you have my plug. So the recommendation is that council approves this annual report for the City of Quesnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and well done. And I hereby direct you to find a contest that we can enter because I'm sure it would win top prize. Because I'm not being funny about this. It really is very well done, very easy to read, professional. There's a lot in it, and this is the City of Quesnel's key document. I mean, if we want to go out and sell whatever we're going to sell, whether it's economic development, whether it's forestry, whether it's this off-site building proposal, this is the document that is going to be the flagship for our sales initiative. So we need a motion to approve this, don't we? Councillor Elliott, you're moving it, and Councillor Goulet is seconding it. All in favor? I'm sure that will be unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now I think we're getting close to the end here. That is the annual report. Council information package, we don't have anything there because we have dealt with the Renewable Cities resolution that fell out of the council information package, and that has been dealt with. So the next item on the agenda is a letter under correspondence from the Caribou Regional District. And was that, I'm just looking for it in my agenda package here. I think I found it. 2 pages were stuck together. Yes. It's a letter from Beth Holden of the Caribou Regional District to Rhea Hartley, our executive producer. So Rhea, if you could just capsulize that letter, we'll deal with it.
Dated June 14th, it's a request from the CRD for a resolution of request for their application to the Destination Development Fund. Their project is the Troll Mountain Resort Terrain Expansion Project. So this.
Okay, that's good. So basically, the gist of that letter is to request a letter of support for the Caribou Regional District's application to the Destination Development Fund. So could I have a mover? Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge seconding, Councillor or City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just make a few comments on this, just so council understands how this fits in with our own hopes and dreams for city projects. Under this same fund, the city did receive 2 grants. So, and this is not a new grant opening. This was actually some funds left over where the government said, let's take a look at some of the projects that didn't make that first cut and see if they can make the second cut. So it's not that it's more money out there that the city could be applying for. So it's not competing with city projects. It also should be noted that Troll is a for-profit business, which is a bit unusual. Council will remember that we supported a resolution for the city of Wells, but it's a bit unusual. This is a for-profit business. However, that's what the province allowed for under this grant funding window, was that for-profit businesses could do that as long as they met the parameters of the program. So I think that's entirely appropriate to be putting in a resolution of support for this. And of course, the key thing is that this creates an even better facility right on the doorstep of Quesnel, which, if plans go according to what they're suggesting in their letter, will be used in the LHTAKO Quesnel 2024 BC Winter Games. So it's going to be a great new addition to that facility, and it will be needed for those games. So I think it's a really good application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that. And obviously, this is a win-win, not only for the potential for the LHTAKO Quesnel 2024 games, but as you will note from the letter, that if this project, when this project is completed, it will double the skiable area at Troll, and so it'll be a tourism generator, and all of those tourists have to come through Quesnel and spend their money. So it works well. So. Do we have I think we have a mover and a seconder, so any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that, Council. Now we, just looking here, I think we're done. We don't have, we have bylaws. Bylaw number 1948, City of Quesnel Council Procedure Bylaw 1948 of 2023, and this is the amending bylaw, and the only change to the procedure bylaw that it will permit us to start our meetings at 5:30 rather than 6:30, which will align nicely with the North Caribou Joint Planning Advisory Committee. So could we have a motion to go for final adoption? Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so that's that. We don't have any new business. We don't have, well, we do have a note for changes to upcoming meeting schedule, and that is with the adoption of bylaw number 1948. Regular council meetings will start at 5:30 p.m. We don't have any changes to committee appointments, although to note that effective July 1, Councillor Elliott will be our acting mayor for the next 6 months. And I just want to mention announcements and future events. As I mentioned right at the beginning of the meeting, tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, and it will be Wednesday, June 21, summer solstice, from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Helen Dixon School Grounds. And bring your own lawn chairs and enjoy displays, activities, drumming, dancing, bannock, medicines, stories, walkout ceremony, and more. Well, I should have had Councillor Elliott. I'm stealing your thunder, aren't I? So, brought to you by the Quesnel Telecom Society and their community partner organization. And I'm sure that Councillor Elliott would just like to add to that narrative.
I think maybe we'll let Councillor Goulet take this one.
Oh, Councillor Goulet.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You summed it up for me. Thank you. I was actually having my hand up for announcements, but yeah, it'll be a great event, 9:30 to 3, Helen Dixon Center. Some great things happening, and once again, National Indigenous Peoples Day. So come on out. It's open to everybody. Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to the bannock. So, okay, is there anything else for the business of council? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, we stand adjourned. Thank you.